I'm here with filmmaker Ari Gold, who is a director, a poet, a musician, founder of Crack Films.
Crack, yeah.
Crack. You've had four films at Sundance. You've won Best Film at South by Southwest twice, and you just have finished your third feature called Brother versus Brother, uh,
This is all
which is
correct.
what's that?
This is all correct.
Good. I'm glad my research is on point. And the topic, sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit, but hopefully
Right.
I'll be okay. Our topic is your new film, Brother versus Brother, which you sent me a screener for. Um, so I will start the timer, and we're going to
Okay.
talk about your new movie.
Okay. Talk
Uh,
fast.
yeah. So I guess I would normally say, why did you choose this topic? But you and I had a back and forth where you sent me like five topics. And then I was like, hey, can I just see your movie? And you sent me a screener, and I was like, oh, all of these topics come back to your movie.
Well, I have made the mistake of making my movie and my life sort of indistinguishable. So that's the nature of this experiment in live cinema, I guess. Yeah, the film. Should we tell people so they know what we're talking about?
Like about the movie itself. Well,
Yeah.
I, I, I don't. It's hard not to be effusive because I really didn't know what to expect. I wasn't familiar with your work before this film, um, but it really is like nothing I've ever seen before, and I don't say that lightly, and I don't like it. It is a truly a special film,
Thank you.
and
Thank you very much.
it left me both like um, fulfilled as an audience member, but also just with like so many questions, both logistical and like just like how the hell did you pull this off? Um, and maybe I'll just name the topics we almost discussed.
Okay.
So these were what you pitched to me as possible topics. You said the one shot film. Your movie is one shot. Uh, generations on
Just
screen.
following in the tradition of Ed Sheeran.
Yeah,
He
right.
just did a one shot thing. So,
Oh, did he? I don't know enough.
yeah,
But
I mean, it just came out. I'm not following him, but let's
I
go.
do want to ask you if it's actually one shot. Like, did you? I
Oh,
didn't
you
want
can
to.
ask me.
Is it? There must be cuts at some point, right?
You know, the experience of the film is an experience of real time.
Yeah.
Um, I'll just say that. Um,
Yeah, it is.
Working with a 99-year-old actor during another outbreak of COVID made us have to do some shenanigans, but um, we got close.
So I before I finish this list, since we're on the one shot, you know that did you see that TV show Adolescence? I think it's called on Netflix.
Yeah.
Um, that I didn't watch all of it, but I I saw where the appreciation was coming from, and from a technical perspective, I thought it was yes, this is like that's one shot done really, really well, and from like oh, it's going into a vehicle, into a building, and it's
In and out of
but
windows. Oh my gosh.
right, but you know exactly what's happening
Yeah.
in your movie. Like it's it's so different. It's such a more
Well, we
natural,
didn't want to be, I didn't want people to be thinking
right?
about the technical thing. I mean, going back to Children of Men, where there were
Mhm.
those very long action shots, and then there's like the blood on the lens at one point, and there's a show off quality that,
Yes.
I get it. I understand that that is exciting, but in my case, I was really inspired by, particularly my friend Nikita Lavretsky's film A Date in Minsk, which he and his real life girlfriend played themselves, but as though they were meeting for the first time.
Hmm.
And you're not thinking about, I mean, it was just an iPhone in Minsk. So you're not thinking about, oh, how did they get the phone out the window? And, there's nothing that
Yeah.
makes you sort of impressed with some cinematic trick or stunt. It's just the intimacy that it provides. So
Yes.
working with my team, that was the goal, was to really just be with the characters and forget that this is happening. And then, there's a huge amount of staging that we did to create close-ups, create wide shots, change perspectives of the characters, because it's about me and my twin brother, and then I'm chasing this young woman, and my brother's trying to chase his music career, and so there's a lot of different perspectives happening as we're then hunting for our dying father, and all those perspectives had to be pre-cut, even though we weren't cutting, by using the choreography of the camera. But none of that choreography is like, wow, how did they do that?
Right.
It's just somebody walking, holding the camera. Um, we're not showing off for better or for worse. I think the film is, sort of aesthetically beautiful, um, but we didn't want to do anything that would attract attention to camera work as a show off thing.
Yeah, and I mean, to create intimacy, which is what the film does, it works really well. And I mean, there are moments where, I mean, especially looking back, where you do kind of marvel technically as to what happened. But yeah, I think the show off quality is a very good point. Is that you're never showing off what you're doing, um, but what you are doing is quite incredible. Especially when you think about like, you're these aren't closed sets. Like you're filming
No,
on
and
the
that was,
streets. And,
yeah, that was one of the things that made it exciting, is that we were shooting in the real streets of San Francisco, and there was a risk. I
yeah,
mean, sometimes physical risk, but more like risk of the shots getting ruined, but also with that risk came the opening of the opportunity for magic to appear. So one example would be, there's a scene where my brother and I are trying to get into this club to play, and we get delayed. So then we go to rehearse in Chinatown. We walk down this alleyway. When we turn the corner for the alleyway, this was all mapped in my in my plan, but I wasn't expecting there to be a woman feeding pigeons in the middle of that alley. And so we turn the corner, and then suddenly these pigeons go flying in the air, like some kind of heavenly uh, confetti, and that was the magic of the city. Had I written into the script, we turn the corner and there's a bunch of pigeons. We did plan things and plan. We planned. We planned most of the movie, but then there are a bunch of things that we didn't plan, that having an open, call it a set, but shooting in the real world gave us gifts, like those pigeons, that I wouldn't have had the guts to write in, because I wouldn't have known how. Suddenly we've got to hire a pigeon wrangler, and
yeah,
so that just happened, and the film is, that was kind of a big example, but the film is full of, because it's improvised, full
yeah,
of examples of stuff that we improvised with what was happening in the street, or that we improvised among each other, among the actors. I say quote around actors, because we were acting, but everyone was playing some kind of slightly exaggerated version of themselves.
yeah.
So, and then we were just out there in the world.
And as an audience member, part of the fun was kind of like, is this person part, like when I'm like the extras and like, I guess supporting actors that had just a couple lines. Like it's really hard to know if they're like improvising, if this was staged. I mean, it's so
Yeah, I mean,
natural.
the everyone who spoke was, was
Yeah,
planned in some way, but there were some interactions on the street that were not planned, with nonverbal. I mean, like there's this, when we go in front of the strip club, the Condor, the kind of classic where Carol Doda used to strip, and that's where my brother and I and Laura Louise, who's the woman in it, like we meet this poet, street poet, who's actually the poet laureate of San Francisco. It's amazing to have him, and he was standing and waiting there, and he ended up chatting with the bouncers at this place, and then we just incorporated them into the scene, and and they're amazing.
Yeah.
They he's like, oh, these are the fellas, and then we're like, hey fellas, and then they're like, they give this and whatever. They just bring such good vibe, and that was, being a hometown film and being from San Francisco, I really felt like the city came through for us, and that
Yeah.
was a nice feeling.
Yeah, the movie really does so much. It's one of the most natural films I've ever seen. You really do feel like you're a part of the city. Um, it's truly, truly unique. But we only got we already have
We
gone
got to
through
talk
half our
fast.
time.
Gotta
So
talk fast.
I just want to at least cover the other topics and maybe we just pick one. So we did the one-shot film. You have generations on screen working with family, music as structure versus music as score, how building a film around musical themes changes every directorial decision. You also suggested mentorship and its discontents. Um, what can mentors actually give versus what filmmakers need to discover on their own. And then you also said distribution in 2026, and then North Beach as a character. So
I got to pick
there's a
one.
lot of topics, and they all kind of connect to brother
Yeah, well,
versus
I'll
brother,
see if we can kind of race through multiple things at once.
or pick one. Yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of mentorship, Francis Ford Coppola was sort of in the air while we were filming. We filmed in his neighborhood. I mixed in his basement, and I was trying to get a hold of him for over a year. And so when he saw the film, which is right before we played South by Southwest, um, he decided to put his name on it as an executive producer, and that, you know, in terms of having a mentor or having a hero at least endorse your film,
It's huge.
is an incredible experience. I mean, I've been fortunate to, I did one of those instant film school classes with Werner Herzog, and my next movie is called Helicopter, which is a documentary about a ritual I performed to reenact my mother's death in a helicopter crash, which was prescribed to me by Alejandro Jodorowsky. So, I have had a couple of, I mean, quite a few of these real pioneering filmmakers. I've had at least some kind of interaction with them, and I have sought it out, because I think growing up, I've talked about it with my twin brother Ethan, who is my co-star and the main composer of Brother versus Brother. But we, I think, felt a lack of mentorship as kids, growing up in a broken family and feeling like we wanted someone to tell us how shit works, in the world.
Yeah.
And so here I am now, like, as an adult filmmaker, but like looking at these grand gentlemen of cinema and finding ways to share with them what I'm doing and glean pieces of wisdom from them. So I've written about these in my Substack. I've written about all of them. Anyone who wants to read about my thoughts on those three, but yeah. That's the mentorship monologue, I guess. We could talk about music actually, if you want. I mean, do you have a preference with our limited time
Um,
to jump into? I'll talk
you,
about music
yeah.
since you don't. Okay, so Francis Ford Coppola has been attracted to musical cinema for a long time. He's been attracted to live cinema, which we did a form of, although his book about live cinema talks about multi-camera approach, where the performers are performing live and the director is working like a sports director, where there's where he's saying camera 12, and then they turn the corner and then it's like camera 16.
Yeah.
So he didn't necessarily argue for the one shot thing, but the notion of experiencing things live is something that he has argued for. But he's also really wanted to do more musical stuff, and One from the Heart incorporated little bits of live cinema and little bits of musical, Cotton Club. But he's always had a lot of musical elements in his films, and so Brother versus Brother, we really wanted to see how we could use musical forms to work with the narrative in this context of improvised live cinema. So that meant really planning out the songs like a symphony, so that the musical themes would come to a climax by the end of the film, and having to preconceive that because of the lack of cuts meant, a lot of pre-visualization with my brother Ethan, who composed most of the music, um, and and then a certain amount of faith too, where it's like, okay, well, this song is a little bit comic, so we're going to want this lift in this part of the scene, but then we should follow it with something more intimate, and trying to carve that out without knowing how it was going to feel. There was a lot of just working with instinct, or intuition, I suppose, about what that might, how that might play out, and then doing a huge amount of work in post production
Yeah.
to build a mix that played with the musical themes pulsing in and out, and bringing intimacy to the characters and then stepping away from them so that you observe them. So the film is constantly moving between the observational eye and ear and
Yeah.
the interior eye and ear. So there are sections of the mix that go completely into a character's head, either through music or sound design. Um, and then they step out and switch to another character, and all of that had to be done in ways that don't line up with how normally you could do that. And normally you cut to the close up of the
Right.
character and then you do something, but there was no cut to the close up because there's no cuts. Um, so doing that through sound and
Yeah.
choreography was really challenging, obviously, but also inspiring to me now, where I kind of don't want to work the old way anymore. But I'm sure I will do some version of it. But I want to incorporate this type of work into my next fiction project as well, because um, I think it brings out the best in your team, in your actors, in your if you make the world alive and then you're capturing a living world.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
And I think especially with music, because you really capture, it's like if you're going out to like a bar at night and there's like a live act and you're just kind of blown away by the music and it just sneaks up on you. It's such a different experience than going to like a concert, of
yeah,
a band. But you really mastered that feeling of just like walking into a bar or a coffee shop and live music is happening and it like just really sweeps you off your feet. And I think you really figured something out with the, I guess, sound mixing is like
yeah.
by,
So like there's the first bar we go into, for example. We started building some melodic themes as we're rehearsing out in the street, um, and they're coming in, quite obviously, but essentially kind of subconsciously if you're
yeah,
if you're just watching the film. So these melodies start to appear while we're talking and walking down the street, and sometimes they're louder than our dialogue, sometimes they're quieter, but they're kind of coming up, and then as we approach the bar, we do this thing where we start hearing, the love interest that we have not met yet, but we hear her singing
yeah,
very unnaturally loud, um, almost like she's in our heads before we even get there. Um, and then when the camera finally finds her in the bar, it becomes very mundane, and it's just her
yeah.
playing guitar. But previous to that, it was this kind of like dreamy, her dreamy voice then comes down to earth.
And one of the
So
best
those were the kind
moments,
of, hmm?
I was gonna say one of the best moments there is you and your brother talking over the
Yeah,
music,
we're like
and you're just
bickering
like,
over her.
stop
Yeah,
talking because
yeah,
you want to
yeah.
hear her
We always
sing.
decide, and it's interesting. Like when we've played it in, like in Brazil and some other countries where they do subtitles, I have to kind of fight with the not fight with, but I'm always insisting on talking with the translator because they want to translate our talking, but they also want to translate the singing. But if they translate the talking when the singing is supposed to dominate, it kind of messes with the audience perception. They're like, oh, okay, well, I'm listening to that dialogue, but my point in that scene is like Ethan starts talking to me, and I completely tune him out because I'm listening
Yeah.
to, this woman that I'm like suddenly getting entranced with, and so, yeah, so we were like pushing my brother's voice, as he's talking to me down and down, so it's just like this mumble until I finally tell him to shut up, and then we, you know, so, and then there's a similar thing that happens later in the same, I'd say same shot because it's all one shot, but in the same bar, we go upstairs and I'm talking to her, and at a certain point, I'm kind of talking about my concerns for Ethan. He's playing downstairs, and then my dialogue with her, both she and I get completely pushed down, and then his song takes over in an extremely unnatural, physically unnatural way, but emotionally very natural way, where his music then pulls the camera towards him. Um, but that was an interesting experiment. Like, okay, is the audience gonna feel confused? Like we're talking, our lips are moving, and then suddenly you can't hear us anymore, and you just hear him singing downstairs, and then he kind of sucks the camera towards him.
Yeah.
So,
That is
uh,
our 20 minutes is up.
20 minutes up.
It
Okay,
goes quickly, I know.
goes quick.
Uh, we didn't cover nearly as much as I would have liked to, but I really I could talk about this film for a very long time.
Well,
I,
that's wonderful to hear.
I'm really glad. Thank you for letting me see a screener of it.
I
Uh,
hope that audiences will be able to see this movie next year. That's
I
my
I
goal.
think I think they will, and I think you really did something special here, and I'm glad that we're talking about it in this series, which will probably be contextualized in some way through the non-D movement, which I think
Yeah.
everyone is kind of figuring out what that even means. I think
And
you're
how to type the accent over the
right.
E. Did Ted
Exactly.
Hope have to be so precious with the accent?
Yeah,
I don't know if he came up with the term, but
blame Ted. It's accent number 7 over the E. That's all I know.
okay.
But I think
Approaching 70.
you like whether you were it was conscious or not, like this epitomizes
Oh yeah, we shot this no permit. We were not dependent. We went out without any permission and any paperwork, and we just made a movie. So
yeah, it epitomizes the spirit of non-D more than anything I've seen in a long time. Really, I can't recommend it enough. So,
thank
uh,
you. Everyone who's watching, please go to brotherversus.com and join my mailing list so that I can tell you when it comes out. And
brother, we should also say it's brother versus brother, uh, not like versus,
yes,
but
it's spelled versus like poetry versus, but I
yeah,
did buy the other brother versus just in case I'm saying it on the radio and people think it want to say it forwards. I protected myself a little bit from
all
my
right.
own pun.
Well, thank you very much, Ari. Appreciate it.